Hello, I am Jacob Alexander, and this is Kendra Otten and Emily Creer. We're going to tell you about Cuba, and this is what happened.
On January 1st, 1959, Fidel Castro, a Cuban nationalist, led its guerrilla warfare into Havana, Cuba. His goal was to overthrow their dictating president, Fulgencio Batista. When Castro rose to power, the U.S. president became nervous. Castro started reducing America's influence on the country and also started relations with the Soviet Union. That made JFK very nervous, with Cuba only 100 miles away from the U.S. border. JFK shut down trading with Cuba immediately. The USSR took up the trading in order to keep the country afloat. January 1961, the U.S. government severed diplomatic relations with Cuba and stepped up its preparations for an invasion. John F. Kennedy, even though Castro posed no real threat to America, believed that the Cuban leader's removal would show Russia, China, and skeptical Americans that he was serious about winning the Cold War. The U.S. planned with Cubans that had run away from the new power. The U.S. gave them everything they would need to take back their country via warfare within Cuba. Though when the Cuban rebels and our troops began their takeover, they were greatly outnumbered and gave up in only one day of fighting. After that, the U.S. decided they would rather let Castro have control of Cuba than give any more lives to this unfortunate occurrence.
Why this happened?
John F. Kennedy believed that masterminding Cuban leaders' removal would show Russia, China, and skeptical Americans that he was serious about winning the Cold War.
Who was involved? Fidel Castro led his guerrilla warfare into Cuba, where he overthrew Hugo Batista, the president of Cuba. Batista was very good friends with our president JFK. The U.S. and Cuba were in very good terms all of the time that Batista was in power. The downfall of that friendship began when Castro took power. Which countries were involved?
The U.S., Cuba, and the USSR were all involved. Cuba was taken over by Castro and began befriending the USSR, as they began unfriending the U.S. The newfound friendship between Cuba and the USSR worried the U.S. greatly, starting the plans for a rebellion within Cuba.